Lily was only 7 years old, but she already knew what it felt like to wish for something with her whole heart. Every night before bed, she'd stare at the stars outside her window and whisper the same words. One day, I'll find my real best friend. Not a toy, not a classmate. Someone who would understand her in that special way only souls meant to find each other can. Her grandparents would smile and pat her head, thinking it was just a child's dream. But Lily? She believed it with every fiber of her tiny being. The air smelled like rain and old wood as Lily followed her grandpa through the overgrown field. Weeds brushed against her jeans, leaving little streaks of green on the fabric. She wasn't supposed to wander too far, but something at the edge of the property caught her eye. A shadow moving near the broken-down barn, the kind of shadow that didn't belong there. Her heart thumped a little faster as she stepped closer, her sneakers sinking into the mud. And then she saw him, a dog, a big one. Or at least he should have been big. Instead, he was all bones and matted fur, curled up in the dirt like he was trying to disappear. His golden brown coat was streaked with grime, and one of his back legs stuck out at an odd angle. But it was his eyes that made Lily's breath hitch, dark and exhausted, like he'd been waiting too long for something that was never coming. A frayed rope tied around his neck kept him just close enough to a fence post that he couldn't run, but not close enough to reach the muddy water in the chipped bowl beside him. Lily's grandpa called out to the farmer, who lumbered over with his hands shoved in his pockets. "What's wrong with him?" Lily asked, her voice small. The man barely glanced at the dog. "Ain't worth nothing now," he grunted. "Got hurt. Can't herd, can't guard. Useless." He said it like he was talking about a broken tool, not a living thing. Then came the words that would change everything. "You want him? $5 and he's yours." And Lily's fingers dug into her jacket pocket before she even realized she was moving. The $5 she'd saved, the one she'd been hiding for a new jump rope, was suddenly in her hand, crumpled but still precious. She held it out, her arm trembling. The man took the money without a word, already turning away. But Lily wasn't looking at him anymore. She was staring at the dog, at the way his ears twitched when she whispered, "Hey, boy," on her grandpa's side, rubbing his forehead. "Oh, Lily, honey, you sure about this? He's in bad shape." She didn't blink. "Yeah," she said. "That's why he needs me." And then, for the first time since she'd spotted him, the dog lifted his head, just a little, just enough, like maybe, just maybe, he'd finally heard something worth listening to. The barn smelled like hay and old wood as Lily tucked the last blanket around Bruno's trembling body. She'd made him a nest in the corner, far from the drafty doors, using every soft thing she could find. Her old winter coat, a faded quilt Grandma said she could spare, even the pillow from her own bed. Bruno didn't move as she worked, just watched her with those dark, quiet eyes that seemed to hold entire stories she couldn't yet read. For 3 days, he barely ate. Lily tried everything, scraps of chicken from dinner, warm milk with bread, even the expensive dog treats Grandpa bought at the feed store. Bruno would sniff, maybe lick at it half-heartedly, then turn his face away. At night, Lily would sneak out in her pajamas, flashlight in hand, just to check if he touched the food. The bowl always sat full, the water barely touched. She started bringing her storybooks, reading aloud about brave dogs and grand adventures, hoping maybe the sound of her voice would make him feel less alone. Sometimes, when she paused between pages, she'd hear the softest sigh from his corner, like the ghost of a response. Then came the 4th evening. Lily was brushing hay from her overalls after helping Grandpa with the chores, humming a song she'd learned at school. She didn't notice at first, just kept humming, sweeping up the stray strands with her hands. But then she saw it, a movement, tiny, barely there, Bruno's tail, just the very tip, twitching against the blanket like a leaf caught in a breeze. Lily froze, afraid if she breathed too loud it might stop, but it didn't. It kept going, that fragile little wag, as if his body remembered happiness before his mind dared to believe in it again. She didn't make a big deal of it, didn't jump up and down like she wanted to. Instead, Lily sat cross-legged beside him, carefully out of reach, and kept humming. And when Bruno's tired head finally, slowly, sank down onto his paws, not in defeat but in something that almost looked like peace, Lily knew this wasn't just some stray dog she'd brought home. This was the beginning of something quiet and patient and extraordinary, the kind of friendship that grows strongest in the silent spaces between words. That night, for the first time, she didn't sneak out to check on him. She didn't need to. Somewhere between the last page of her story and the flickering lantern light, Bruno had started eating. The bowl was half empty when dawn came. The first clue came on a rainy Tuesday evening. Lily was sprawled on the living room floor coloring when Grandpa turned on one of his war documentaries. The moment the sound of marching boots crackled through the TV speakers, Bruno's head snapped up from his spot by the fireplace. His ears stood straight as fence posts, his body tensed like a coiled spring. Lily watched, crayon frozen mid-air, as Bruno's eyes tracked invisible movements across the room. Then, strangest of all, he let out a low rumbling whine from deep in his chest, a sound she'd never heard him make before. 2 days later, the mystery deepened. Lily was carrying a bucket of chicken feed to the coop when she tripped over Bruno's paws. The metal pail crashed to the ground with a deafening clang. Before she could even gasp, Bruno was there, not running from the noise but placing himself squarely between Lily and the fallen bucket, his body rigid with purpose. He scanned the yard in sharp, methodical turns, his breathing controlled. Not scared, not panicked, alert, like someone had trained him to do exactly this. Then came the moment that made Grandpa put down his coffee and stare. Lily was playing cops and robbers with an imaginary friend, pointing her finger like a gun. Bang! She shouted playfully. Bruno dropped like a stone, not just sitting, not just lying down. A perfect, immediate play dead, belly up, legs stiff, the whole act. Lily burst out laughing until she saw Grandpa's face. "I never taught him that," she whispered. The old man knelt beside Bruno, gently examining the scars along his shoulders. Not random injuries, but precise lines that told stories of harnesses and gear. That night, Lily overheard Grandpa on the phone with the vet. "There's something different about this dog, like he's remembering things he's supposed to have forgotten." The pieces didn't fit a stray who'd been kicked around farms. They fit something else entirely. Something that explained why Bruno's eyes always watched doorways first. Why he walked at Lily's left side like an escort. Why he seemed to understand commands no one had given. As summer stretched on, the truth hovered just out of reach, in the way Bruno sometimes sat at perfect attention when the church bells rang and the careful way he checked the perimeter of the yard each morning. This wasn't just a dog with scars, this was a dog with secrets. And one stormy afternoon near the woods, those secrets would come crashing into the light. The golden afternoon light was fading when Lily wandered too close to the tree line, chasing fireflies with Bruno padding quietly behind her. The tall grass whispered against her jeans as she laughed, holding out her hands to catch the flickering lights. Then the forest went silent. No birds, no crickets, just a terrible rustling in the underbrush. A wild boar exploded from the bushes, 200 pounds of muscle and tusks charging straight at Lily with a guttural snarl. Time stopped. Her feet rooted to the ground, her scream trapped in her throat. Then Bruno moved like lightning. He didn't bark. He didn't hesitate. In one fluid motion, he placed himself between Lily and danger, his entire body transforming before her eyes. The gentle dog who limped on rainy days now stood rock solid, his weight perfectly balanced, a deep commanding growl rumbling from his chest that didn't sound like any noise a pet should make. The boar skidded to a stop, confused by this sudden challenge. What happened next wasn't an animal fight. It was a tactical operation. Bruno advanced in controlled bursts, herding the boar away from Lily with precise movements. When the enraged creature lunged, Bruno dodged with military precision, always keeping himself as the barrier. His bad leg didn't matter now. Every step was calculated, every feint intentional. This wasn't instinct. This was training. Then came the miracle. With one final charge, Bruno drove the boar back into the trees, his bark echoing like gunshots through the quiet woods. The moment the threat vanished, he turned and limped back to Lily's side, his warm tongue gently licking her trembling hands as if to say, "Mission complete." But the real shock came when Grandpa arrived, panting from running. Bruno immediately sat at attention, his eyes locked on the old man's face, waiting for something. Orders? Approval? Lily watched as understanding dawned in Grandpa's eyes. This wasn't just a stray they'd taken in. They'd been living with a soldier all along. The way Bruno had protected her, the strategy, the discipline, it all pointed to one impossible truth. Their broken $5 dog had been someone else's hero first. And heroes, it seemed, never really forgot how to save lives. The vet's office smelled like antiseptic and nervous dogs when Dr. Simmons ran his hands along Bruno's neck for what felt like the 100th time. Lily held her breath as the old vet paused over a lump she'd never noticed before. "There's something here," he muttered, reaching for tweezers. Then came the soft metallic click that would change everything. A tiny black chip, no bigger than a grain of rice, glinting under the clinic lights. Dr. Simmons's hands shook as he cleaned it. "Military issue," he whispered, hurrying to a dusty scanner in the corner. The machine beeped once, twice. Then the screen flashed to life with words that made Lily's heart stop. WAFO 9 K9 unit, status, MIA, Operation Crimson Dawn. The date, 2 years ago. The location, somewhere overseas Lily had only seen on the news. The vet's voice cracked as he read the details. Bravo 9, had been a decorated military working dog specializing in explosive detection. His unit had been ambushed during transport. The explosion took out 3 vehicles. They'd recovered human remains, but no dog, presumed dead. Until today. Lily's tears fell hot and fast onto Bruno's fur as the truth crashed over her. Those scars weren't from kicks or fights, they were shrapnel wounds. The way he checked doorways, clearing rooms, the play-dead trick, training for active shooter scenarios. Even his limp matched the records, a hind leg injury from the blast that should have killed him. Somehow, this hero had survived the unimaginable, only to end up discarded on a rotting farm, sold for less than the price of a hamburger. But the most heartbreaking detail came last. Dr. Simmons pointed to the chip's final entry. Handler, Captain J. Reyes, deceased. Bruno hadn't just lost his job that day. He'd lost his person. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing her cheek against the rough scars. "You were waiting for him to come back, weren't you?" she whispered. Bruno's warm tongue swiped her cheek once, a soldier's salute and a dog's forgiveness all at once. In that moment, Lily made a silent promise. However many second chances Bruno needed, she'd be there to give them. Because heroes, she now understood, don't stop being heroes when the uniform comes off. They just wait for the right person to remind them who they are. News travels fast in small towns, especially when it involves a war hero coming back from the dead. The local paper ran the story on the front page. K9 soldier found after 2 years. Local girl rescues forgotten hero. By noon, cars were lining up along the dirt road leading to Lily's farm. People came bearing gifts, homemade dog treats, new collars, hand-knitted blankets with patriotic colors. The mailman brought a stack of letters so thick it barely fit in the mailbox, each one addressed to Bruno in shaky handwriting from veterans and dog lovers across the country. Then the soldiers started arriving. First it was Mr. Henderson from the hardware store, who'd served 2 tours overseas. He stood at attention in his old uniform, saluting Bruno with tears in his eyes. Then came a group of young Marines from the next county over, who presented Bruno with a handmade medal fashioned from bottle caps and ribbon. But the visit that left everyone speechless was the elderly man in the wheelchair, a retired K9 trainer who'd worked with military dogs for 30 years. He took one look at Bruno's stance, the way his ears perked at certain commands, and nodded slowly. "That's no ordinary soldier," he told the hushed crowd. "That dog saved lives. I'd bet mine on it." Lily watched in awe as her quiet farm became something magical. Neighbors who'd never spoken before shared stories over lemonade. Kids from school asked shyly if they could pet Bruno, treating him with the reverence usually reserved for superheroes. The local bakery even made Bruno bones, special dog cookies shaped like medals, with all proceeds going to veteran charities. But the most beautiful moment came at sunset, when the whole town gathered in the pasture for an impromptu ceremony. As someone played taps on a crackly phone speaker, Bruno sat perfectly still at Lily's side, his head high, his eyes clear for the first time since he'd arrived. In that moment, everyone understood. This wasn't just about a dog's second chance. It was about remembering that heroes come in all forms, and sometimes the bravest among us walk on four legs. As the stars came out and the last cars rumbled down the driveway, Lily knelt beside Bruno in the grass. "See?" she whispered, scratching behind his ears just how he liked. "They never forgot you." And when Bruno rested his head on her knee with a contented sigh, it felt like the whole world was finally right again. The little girl who'd dreamed of a best friend and the soldier who'd thought his war was over, they'd found each other when they needed it most. That's the thing about miracles. They don't always come with flashing lights and fanfare. Sometimes they come limping into your life on three legs, just waiting for someone to see the hero behind the scars. Lily sat on the porch steps as the evening sun painted the sky in gold and pink, Bruno's warm weight pressed against her side. She ran her fingers through his fur, tracing the scars that told his story, each one a reminder of what he'd survived. The town had celebrated him as a hero, but to Lily, he was so much more. He was the quiet presence who waited for her after school, the protector who walked her to the bus stop every morning, the friend who listened to her secrets without judgment. People often said she'd saved Bruno, but she knew the truth. He'd saved her too. Before Bruno, she'd been just a quiet girl with big dreams. He'd taught her about courage, about never giving up even when the world seems too heavy. And in return, she'd given him something just as precious, a home, a purpose, a reason to trust again. As fireflies flickered in the gathering dusk, Bruno rested his head on her lap with a deep sigh, his tail giving one slow, contented thump against the wooden step. Lily smiled, leaning down to press her forehead against his. "You're my best friend," she whispered. And in that simple moment, with no fanfare or crowds, it was enough. A broken soldier and a little girl with a heart too big for her chest. Together they'd found the kind of love that changes everything. Not with grand gestures, but with quiet loyalty, with second chances, with 5 crumpled dollars, and the courage to believe in something as simple as kindness. Some stories end with happily ever after. Theirs? This was just the beginning. Dear friend, thank you for watching. Leave a comment below and tell us how this touched your heart. Subscribe to our channel, Tales of Paws and People, to help us spread more stories of grace, healing, and hope. And may God bless every soul watching this. May you find warmth in the storm and light in the silence.